Have you ever wondered about the brains behind the books that become award winners? Welcome to the Nautilus Book Award Spotlight on the Kanavos Show in partnership with Nautilus, Better Books for a Better World. We showcase winners in 34 categories from green living and sustainability to mind-body practices. The author tonight joins this prestigious rank with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Deepak Chopra, Greg Braden, and Peter Canova. I'm Kathleen O'Keefe Kanavos, aka Kat, your host and fellow Nautilus Award winner. Our guest tonight is world-renowned author Dr. Bernie Siegel, aka Bernie. Don't call him doctor and don't call him Dr. Bernie or Dr. Siegel. He is Bernie. And he has long observed how relationships with animals have helped his patients, which is the subject of his Nautilus award-winning book, Love, Animals, and Miracles. So welcome to the show, Bernie.
Thank you. I'll tell you something mysterious. I was a surgeon in this life because I killed people with a sword in a past life. It may sound crazy, but I really think, and they're animals. And I've been rescuing animals my whole life. And I really had the feeling when I had that past life experience that this is why I've been so connected to rescuing all these creatures. And, you know, I called our house, it's mentioned in the book, the Siegel Zoo, because every time a veterinarian had some exotic creature that somebody didn't want anymore, he would call our house and we would go and get it. And they were all family, all with names, all running loose in the house. Because I would say to people, look, if you see a mouse in the living room, don't get upset. It's a pet.
Don't trap it.
Yeah, most of them were white, so they stood out, you know, and you knew it wasn't something that ran in from the front yard. But,
so you didn't keep your mice in a cage either?
Well, usually at night we would try to put them in, but, you know, they would get out and wander around. We had one creature called the kinkajou, which is a nocturnal South American. It's like, it's in the raccoon family, but like a raccoon and a monkey were crossed. And because it was nocturnal, you know, if you let it out at night, it would drive you nuts. So I used to have to catch it at night and put it in a cage. And then in the morning, we'd let it out. But, you know, the other funny thing, if you have the time to hear these.
We do.
Sometimes I'd have to call up the police because I couldn't find a creature. And you imagine getting on the phone and saying to the police, our kinkajou has gotten away. And, and they'd say, what? And I would explain it. But the other interesting thing I found, we had what today is against zoning laws. We had skunks that were de-skunked, squirrels, all kinds of birds, all, you know, injured, rescued creatures. The front yard had ducks and goats and geese and all kinds of creatures with fences around. And people would say, oh, you have a farm. I say, no, we have 1.5 acres and everybody's living with us. But nobody ever reported us. I found that interesting later when I learned we were breaking the law because they knew we were doing it out of love. So their children would come to our house to appreciate all the creatures. I mean, I dug ponds, so turtles, you know, lived with us. And I painted portraits of many of the creatures. But they were all family. And everybody knew it was out of love, that we were not neurotic, you know, doing this. And therefore, they enjoyed it and allowed us to do all these things. Yeah, and the veterinarians were impressed with how well these creatures survived and, you know, all the love that we gave them. It's, you know, Schweitzer, well, give you a test question. When you walk down the street after the rain and there's a worm on the sidewalk, what do?
I walk around it.
Yeah.
I don't pick it up and take it home.
Yeah, well, that's what I do. I pick it up and I put them on the ground. And I've been doing it for God knows how many years. And I just thought, well, you're neurotic. You know, it's not bad, but you're neurotic. And then I came across Albert Schweitzer's an article by him that said, if you walk down the street after the rain and you see a worm, pick it up and return it to the earth. And if you see an insect in a puddle, give it a leaf to climb on.
Yeah, I do that in the
I
pool.
read that. I felt so much better. You know, it's the reverence for life. And that's
Yeah.
how our children are. I mean,
Well, I would assume that if there's a worm on the sidewalk, maybe he crawled out there because the ground was too soggy. So
yeah.
you know, I wouldn't want to put it back in. But
Well,
no, I
not
never.
into the water, but on top of the, you know, the grass and the ground. And, you know, and our kids have that reverence. One of them who's in law enforcement, all right, he has a gun. He's capable of killing because they have to say they are. And he said to me, he was at a meeting of training and he saw a turtle on the sidewalk when he went out at a break. And he spent half an hour to return it to a pond. Now, I don't worry about him with a gun. If he spent half an hour saving a turtle's life, he's not going to hurt somebody. And the other thing, he has a bit of my sense of humor. He said it must have been a male turtle who didn't ask directions.
Oh, that's funny. So what did you do with all these animals when they grew up? I mean, I raised a lot of what I call my woodland babies, and we had skunks, we had baby raccoons, we had Winky the bird while I was going through treatment. But they all went away and they kind of fell in love, got married, had babies.
Right.
Sometimes they brought their babies back. What did you do?
Well, first of all, we live in the woods. So it's not, I mean, yes, it's a residential area, but it's very wooded. And so they could roam, you know, and be free when they were ready. But usually if they were injured and the vets gave it to us, as soon as they got well, then we would release them. And that would often break our children's hearts. Our daughter was into birds and we had an injured bird. And when it got better, I put it out in the front yard. And it sat there for 5 days. And then left. You know, it sat on a branch. Well, it came down for breakfast. Let's put it that way. You know, every morning it would be on the ground waiting for a meal because it was. But then the 5th day it was gone, and it broke our daughter's heart. You know, he was like her child. But I said it's healthy now. It can go off. You know, have its family. You know, and it took her a few days to get over it. But that's what we would do. You know, release them back into the wild and let them go. And well, one of the other interesting things, the goats, see, everything was hatched in an incubator, all the eggs. So they imprinted on our children and they literally thought our kids were their parents. And the ducks and geese used to try to get on the school bus. I mean that literally. When the kids would go down the driveway, they would follow and the drivers knew, you know, they laughed, but they didn't get upset. And the thing that impressed me, when my mother and father lived on a big lake, so when we would get too many creatures, we would take it there and release them on the lake. So the ducks and geese. But one day my mother called after we had dropped off a bunch. She said, I have a question for you. I said, what is it? All the neighbors want to know why the ducks and geese come out of the lake up to the road when a school bus pulls up. And that touched my heart. That they're looking for our children, that, you know, they felt like family and now they didn't have our family. But it really shows you our connection, you know, that we're all living creatures capable of loving and caring. And I have to say, the animals taught me a lot about forgiveness. You know, when one animal hurts another, we had dogs in the house and I rescued a rabbit. And learned that they live in the house too. Oh, it was such a wonderful creature. When I would read a book, it would jump up on the sofa, grab the book and throw it on the floor and roll over to have her tummy rubbed. And I wrote a little book about her.
The rabbit would do this?
Yeah, the rabbit would do that. Yeah. Her name is Smudge Bunny. That's a little book I wrote. But what she taught me was about forgiveness because the dog named Furphy, when I thought they knew each other and was safe, I went out of the house for an hour, came back. He had grabbed her and injured her. You know, I knew he must have grabbed her like a stuffed toy and shaken her. And about 10 days later, I go out in the front yard to bring her in because I didn't like leaving her in the dark, you know, in case the predators jumped the fence or something. And she would always hide because she didn't want to come in. And this day I kept walking around the yard and I couldn't find her. And the dog was lying there on the ground. So I went over to pet him. and she was lying underneath him so I wouldn't see her. And that impressed me, that here's somebody who had injured her badly, and now they were best friends. You know, she had forgiven him, and he was doing her a favor now. And that's the part.
Maybe he didn't mean to hurt her.
Oh,
and
no,
she
no,
would.
yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't know who she was or what she was. And the 10 days wasn't enough, because all the veterinarians had warned me, you know, when you introduce animals, do it very slowly. And I learned to do that even more slowly than I thought was okay. And even to cage them very often so everybody would get to know them, you know, and smell them before I'd let them out and loose. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you talk about miracles in your book, Love Animals and Miracles. Can you share a miracle with us? I mean, those are all pretty miraculous, I got to tell you.
We had a cat named Miracle. And
okay.
I can't help but think of the crazy things that happened, because my wife and I had to go off to give a lecture, and we had to get to the airport. And my wife said, Miracle isn't in the house. So the two of us ran outside, and we were barely dressed. You know, we were starting to get dressed to go. And we're both yelling, Miracle, Miracle, Miracle. And my wife suddenly said, Bernie, stop. What are the neighbors thinking? So, anyway, but the reason she was named Miracle was when, before she was brought to our house, one of our kids brought home a kitten that was in a garage that somebody found. But anyway, this woman said she went to bed, she had cancer. A cat appeared in her dream and said, my name is Miracle, and this is the treatment you need for your cancer. And she said, I wrote it all down and told my doctor, and he did it. He was willing to do it, and I'm well today. Now that's the part that blows my mind. Yeah. This is a woman who is not medical. She doesn't know anything about the chemotherapy and other things. And a cat appears, says, my name is Miracle, and this is how you should treat yourself. And I had a cat years ago appear named Diamond. I thought it was named Diamond because it was an iridescent cat. And at that time, it was after I had my past life experience, I was seeing James Hillman, the Jungian therapist, to help me with all the grief I had over it. And I said, in this dream, a cat named Diamond, but nobody pronounced it correctly. They didn't say the D. And he said, Bernie, it's D-A-I-M-O-N, Diamond. It's your spirit. And that cat, yeah. I mean, that's when it all made sense to me, what the cat was sharing with me and its appearance and everything. And that's the part.
And how long did you have that cat?
Pardon?
How long did you have the cat?
Which
Diamond?
Miracle? No, Diamond was in a dream.
Oh, Diamond was in a dream.
See, it was like a sparkling cat. That's why I thought his name Diamond.
Cat.
And it was its spirit. Miracle, by the way, lived to 20 years and would not have died if she didn't have a reaction to a medication she got. She had a bizarre reaction, because God knows how long she would have gone on, but 20 years is pretty damn good for a cat. And she also really was a part of me. Everywhere I went, I took her. If I drove for 5 hours, she wouldn't sleep in the car. She would sit up and watch me. I mean that literally. I built her a shelf on the door, and she would sit there. And if I got drowsy, she'd poke me, you know, keep your eyes on the road. It was unbelievable.
I love that.
The most intelligent creature I have ever met. Yeah. And she,
that is great.
She was like another mother in the house, taking care of everybody.
And instead of you being an animal parent, she was an animal parent in reverse. Right. She was your mother. Yeah. So, you know, Bernie,
my mother. If I went to bed to take a nap, she wouldn't bother. But if I wasn't feeling well and went to bed, Miracle was always there on whatever part of my body wasn't feeling right. She would lie down right on it, you know, and heal me. It was amazing. Yeah.
A little healing cat. So for our audience tonight, Bernie, can you share a writing tip with them if they would like to be an award-winning writer? What would you tell them to do?
What helped me most, just so they all know, the only C I got in 4 years of college was in creative writing because I was thinking. See, I was a science major, thinking, and an artist too. I'm a very visual person. So words were not my thing. Years later, I was reading some of William Saroyan's work. And the thing that helped me most was a story in which a writer says to his assistant, "You're a good writer." And the young man says, "What do you mean? I haven't written anything." "That letter on your desk to your father." He says, "Yeah, that's a letter to my father." "All right, then write a letter to everyone." I think that's the best way to be a creative and successful writer. Write a letter to everyone. And I found, before emails and things, I used to sit and write letters to everyone who needed help, and it would just flow out of me. And even my emails, I don't punctuate, I don't worry. I just let it flow. And one other piece of assistance, he wrote the book, about the mafia, Mario Puzo. Yeah, he became a friend of mine. And one of his friends said to me, it's interesting, when Mario says, "I'm going to go, write my book," and I'd watch him go into a room and he doesn't do anything. He just sits there. And I went in, I said, "Look, you're not writing. Why don't we go do something else?" He said, "I'm sitting here waiting for the character to say something, then I'll write it down." And so he became the person he wrote about. And that's the part, again, that you have to be that person and feel it and not think about what would they say, no, be that person. And then you can react in a way that would come from them. And I've gotten better at it, because it's like, if I'm a multiple personality, all the characters I might write about are these personalities. So I react and I know, because it just comes naturally to act that way.
Yeah, that's interesting because, you think of yourself as being id, ego, super ego, which we were talking about in the show before this one. And also those different personalities come out in your dreams a lot of times too, because your dreams are always kind of connected to you. Although I had monks in my dreams that were diagnosing my breast cancer, and I have no idea where they came from. But still, it's interesting. You have to be in your book. You can't write from an area where you're not involved.
Yeah, and as I say, you can't write from your thinking brain. Because then it's just an example. I asked a male engineer to draw a picture for me to help know what was going on in his life and how he was dealing with his feelings. It's the same as a dream. He wrote a full page of instructions on how to draw the picture. See, I looked at it. I said, I asked you to draw a picture. Look what you did. I mean, there's all these details. Instructions. You could have drawn the picture, but it woke him up to what his brain was like and how he was thinking. Well, this is a quote from a lawyer. "I came to a conclusion that was eminently reasonable, totally logical, and completely wrong. Because while learning to think, I almost forgot how to feel." See?
Oh,
and that's what has to come out of you.
I like that.
Yeah, the heart has to be a part of what you're saying and doing. I mean, when I say I'm a multiple personality, I'm not kidding. I mean, I act like a child. I mean, things come out of me. I say things that I'm not in charge of. I didn't decide. It's my spirit that's doing it. I'm not going to get into that part. But believe me, my wife says it comes from God knows where when people look at her like, why does he act this way? But the joy I have is when I call up restaurants to order things or go places and act silly over the phone, they immediately say, "Is this Dr. Siegel?" I say, "Yeah." Because nobody else calls and acts the way they do. It's like if you called the pizza place and ordered Chinese food, they immediately say, "Is this Dr. Siegel?" I say, "Yes." And it's keeping the child in you alive. Maybe that's another way to be a really good writer. Keep the child alive so that everything you see lights up your vision and is interesting to you. And then you really see it. Because, see, as a painter, I realized I really began to learn what people looked like. We don't have white skin and black skin and yellow skin. You know what I mean?
I'm pink.
It's beautiful. Everybody's multicolored. So when you're painting it, you begin to see that. And that's what we have to do, learn to see the truth. And the only way, again, back to myths and fairy tales, how does the ugly duckling see he's a swan? How does a tiger brought up by goats realize he's a tiger? They're both on a still pond and they see their reflection. And then they say, oh, I'm a swan. Oh, I'm a tiger. Yeah. Because another tiger takes him over there to say, hey, dumbbell, you're not a goat. Why are you acting this way? And that's what we have to do. See, to communicate, whether it's to write a book or communicate with somebody, you've got to quiet your mind and then you see the truth.
Wow. Well, we are out of time. I mean, I could go on for another, hour with all of this. And so we're going to have you come back on now that we know how to work Zoom on your computer and go into detail. And,
but it's stories, keep telling stories.
Stories, right? Stories.
There's one other author said, there's only one thing truer than the truth, a story. I forgot her name. She's a Hispanic woman author. And she said, there's one thing truer than the truth, a story. And that's why, as a doctor too, I became a storyteller. And then doctors didn't get mad at me, about, is that statistically valid? That's a poor controlled study. They could say, oh, that was just a story. So they didn't feel threatened, but it opened their minds.
Mm-hmm. So how can our audience find you?
Find me?
And how can they find your book? Your book?
The book, Love Animals and Miracles. There.
Hold it up a little higher.
Stores.
Oh, that's nice.
And through my website, as a matter of fact, give them a chance to get a discount. If they go to Bernie Siegel, SIEGELMD.com, they can order the books through the website. They're all listed there.
Okay.
There's a contact little space on the order form, because a lot of these orders goes to a place called Wisdom of the Ages that's run by family. It's a store run by the kids, wisdomoftheages.org. So if they order, to put in that little box, number 36,
okay,
they'll get a 15% discount if they order it that way.
Okay, I wrote it down, and I'll make sure that I put that in the blog that I will be putting on Pathos from this show. And I just want to thank you again for being on the show with us tonight. This was such a joy. I love all the stories, and we all just love you. So I hope you'll come back again and share some more stories with us. And maybe once we get the book done on dreams that can save your life, we can have some of the stories that you're going to be putting in there about children.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you guys love to hear?
Yeah, I did a lot of children's surgery. And the children aren't worried about doing things wrong. So they'll draw pictures, tell you about their dreams, things that adults are afraid to share, because you'll think I'm crazy or I did it wrong or whatever. But the kids are such wonderful teachers, and all the things that happened with them. Yeah. And what they taught me.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Thank you, Dr. Bernie Siegel, Bernie, for being with us and telling us about your award-winning book, Nautilus Award-winning book. And we hope to see you again really soon. So stay tuned, everybody, for next week. We've got Dr. Greg Braden with us and Mary Belknap, who is the new director and owner of Nautilus Book Awards, actually of Nautilus, period. So join us next Monday night, same time, same place, same station. And until then, have a great week, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Bless you.
Thanks to all of you for joining us on the Nautilus Book Award Spotlight. This show is archived and can be downloaded from the Cat Kanavos Show Facebook page and the Cat Kanavos Show website, different from my public Facebook page, Kathleen O'Keefe Kanavos, and website by the same name, and will be posted on nautilusbookawards.com, the Nautilus website. Until next time, read a good book.